Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. This week, I spoke to actor and performer Ross Mullan. Ross is an accomplished stage and screen actor. He's toured with big theatre productions, he's a voiceover artist, and he's played iconic characters in television and film in Doctor Who, Antman and the Wasp, Quantamania, and as the White Walker in HBO's Game of Thrones. I had a great chat with Ross about what it's like to be an actor with heavy prosthetics playing fantasy characters. He also gave me some great tips for actors in those roles and the makeup and SFX teams that look after them. Enjoy. So I've looked back through your IMDb, looked through your resume. You've got a pretty varied career. You've done tons of stuff, and it looks like you started out in theatre. Did you do any training for that, or did you? How did you start?
Well, how I started was, gosh, uh, I bothered my parents enough because there was no drama section that was worth pursuing in my school when I was a kid. See, coming from Canada, my father really wanted me to be a hockey player.
Right.
So for 10 years, for the first 10 years of my life, I was a hockey player for my father. And
Mm,
then we got into a big argument, and I said, I want to be an actor. And he said, oh, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, I want to take acting classes. I was only 12.
mm,
So he sold all my hockey equipment and put me into acting classes in Montreal, where I'm from.
yep.
I went to the very first school for children in Montreal called Children's Theatre, where William Shatner actually trained when he was a little boy.
Oh, no way.
So that's like a long time ago it opened.
Yeah.
And the same ladies who trained him trained me when I was very small.
Yeah.
So I was like 12 years old when I started my training, and doing little plays and things for them. And then I went into drama school when I was 16. I went to a college for drama, and then I went on to university and studied drama as well in Toronto
Hmm.
at Ryerson, which is where Nia Vardalos studied. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. She was a couple of years ahead of me in
Hmm.
school. And Eric McCormick from Will and Grace as well.
Wow. So, oh,
Yeah.
cool, awesome. And it was that training specifically theatre, or did it cover film as well?
It was pretty much at that stage in the 80s, you really only had theater training, very little training for actual film work.
Mm,
I mean, the only type of film training you would get is more intimate style. Like a closed box, sort of smaller, try to make things tinier because most universities and colleges didn't have the equipment to set up. Having said that, we did have a couple of days where we would go into a film studio, see how it operated and worked. So I did have some kind of idea around what the equipment was like to work with,
mm.
what a three camera setup was like for a TV show, but very little, very, very little. And for the first gosh, 15 17 years of my career, I did mostly theater. I
Yeah.
did very, very little film and television. Yeah.
And was that going straight into theatre? Did
Mhm.
Could you make a living out of that? Was it that and day
Yeah.
jobs, or you just made a steady living out of doing theatre productions?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, as an actor does, an actor is a man of many hats and woman of many hats. I waited tables in between jobs, but there wasn't a year that had passed. And still to this day, there has never been a year that's passed that I haven't had a professional gig.
Mm,
Um, I worked in a mask theater company for my first 4 years, and also doing other little theater jobs in and around Canada. And then I moved to the UK in 1991 with the intention of taking a year off and traveling around Europe. I fell in love with London, decided to stay, and met up with a dancer who put me in a show, got me an agent, and then I started touring all around Europe, the Middle East, and Asia with musicals, doing musical shows. Yeah.
wowzers. So what for somebody who's thinking of purely starting off into theatre, what
Mhm.
is touring life like?
um, it's not for it's not something if you're older, I wouldn't say you want to start off in that direction when you're
Yeah.
old. It's a young man's game, you know. It's it's a hard slog. It can be a very hard slog if you're not touring with one of the big, you know, if you're not touring with Andrew Lloyd Webber's companies
Mhm.
or one of the big touring companies, because you'll be doing your own setups and pack downs and get ins and get outs and, you know, doing all the setups and stuff. Um, but it's amazing. It's also awesome. Like I saw the whole world, you know, doing that. I toured literally all over Europe, uh, Japan, Hong Kong, Kuwait, Taiwan. Um, I was a kid, you know, I was in my 20s and I couldn't get enough of it. You know,
Mhm.
traveling around with about 7 other actors, doing productions in the evening and having the whole day to just kind of hang out and see these amazing cities and then, you know, go out and party in the evening because I had the energy for it, right? um so it's a great way to see the world. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, when you're working abroad you don't really get to see the cities, and that can be very true when you're filming, but when you're doing theater, not really, because you got all day to kind of hang out and go see the sights.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, it's a kind of a toss up between the two. You know, it can be really great thing. It can also be really exhausting. I burned out after about 6 or 7 years of touring. By the end of the 90s, I was exhausted and I just thought I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
You know, I was coming home to London every 6 or 7 months, and London was really a new home for me already. And I wasn't really setting up roots here, and I didn't really know, you know, I felt all discombobulated and I was heading into my 30s and I wanted to change. So, you know, things had a natural progression into moving away from touring into looking at maybe doing more film and TV if I could get it, you know, and I couldn't immediately right away. I changed
Mhm.
my agent, you know, started doing call center work, box office work, same old in between jobs, you know, where you meet other actors. You pick up leads and ideas and you know, I did some stand-up comedy. I trained as a puppeteer as well with the Muppets. Um, you know, I've always been interested in adding a new string to my bow in my career. Always did singing lessons, acting classes, and then eventually I got cast in a miniseries and made a bit of money, you know,
Mhm.
finally in my career and put it towards a home, the one I'm sitting in right now. And you know, and then I lost everything. Then I went bankrupt,
Oh, I'm
and then I got another job, and that you know is that pulled me out of my debt, and that was you know that changed the trajectory of my career.
yeah.
So you've got to, I mean, if you're interested in this career, you really have to give up the notion of what your mom and dad may have thought security was like. Because my parents, you know, my mom was a nurse, my dad worked in oil refineries. What they wanted for me was a security and, you know, a sense of absoluteness about my career, that would give me security and pension and all those things. I don't have that necessarily, and not to say that you can't have that as an actor if you're smart with your money. I'm not. Um, you know, there's you got to fly by the seat of your pants to a certain degree in this career, and you got to accept a certain amount of insecurity. I think, and you got to be a bit of a gambler and want to do this. You know, I remember like last Christmas I met this young girl. She was about 16 or 17 at a Christmas party with her mom and dad, you know, and her mom and dad were both lawyers. And they said to her, you know, give her some advice, you know, tell her she needs something to fall back on. Well, you know, I said, I'm really sorry, but you know, I can't say that to her because in my opinion, if you really want to make it in this industry, don't have something to fall back on.
Mhm.
That's because you'll fall back on it
Yeah.
easily. And
Yeah.
if you know, if you studied for 4 years to be a lawyer just so you could have that as your backup job, you're not going to enjoy what it is to be a performer. You know, like you can't just drop your lawyer job or do it on the weekend. You know, it's uh that's what waitering is for, that's what call center jobs are for, that's what the little jobs are for that help you connect with other people in the performing industry. Also, they make you want to go and do your job, your main job, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, it's tough, and it's tough to hear that sometimes. But you got to make it fly. Also, I'm older now, so I don't know what young kids do. I think probably do a lot of stuff online, or I think they hand things out at stations, and it's you got to kind of make it work, right? And there's a fun in that. You connect with other actors, you get other leads. You get kind of things like, where are you going? What are you doing? Meet people on cruise ships, do cruise ship jobs, all that stuff. There's
Mm.
a ton of angles you can get in this industry, and it's a lot of fun. But it's not for everybody.
Yeah. I think having chatted to a lot of creatives recently, it does feel like jumping in, you've got to jump in, you've got to go for it and commit. And like you say, I've
Yeah.
done it myself, where I thought, oh, I'll make another feature film, and I'll go to work, I'll go in the mornings, and I'll film in the evenings, and I'll split, and then you become a half a person because you're not dedicated to that,
Mm.
that one thing. So yeah, that's good advice. And that must have been an interesting conversation in front of the parents to say, yeah, don't get this lawyer job, to two lawyers as well, people who are in
Yeah.
that industry. With the theatre training, how much did that prepare you for screen acting? What did you take from theatre into sort of film and television?
Um, it's really tough to say what kind of prepares you for what you're doing in the industry now. By the end of drama school, I was just absolutely desperate to work. Um, and then you really carve your teeth by working. So, some of the actors I've worked with in this industry have never trained and are equally as good, and if not sometimes better.
Mhm.
Some people who go into training are destroyed by it. And by the end of the 3 years or 4 years of training, they're nowhere near as talented as they were when they went in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I would say that for because I teach sometimes.
Mm.
I think sometimes drama school can really, it's not for you, and it's a tricky dance, I guess, for the students and for the teachers to know whether that's for you or not, and where to direct somebody if it is or it isn't. Because you don't want to be, when I teach, I always say, especially if they're coming to the end of their 3 years, because often when kids are coming to the end of their 3 or 4 years of drama school, they're feeling somewhat disillusioned and frightened of going into the industry. Um, they're overwhelmed. Or they feel extremely safe in the environment that they're in,
Yeah.
and they don't want to leave it, but they have to, because it's not a realistic environment. We don't live in that world anymore, where you go into a theater company which holds you for 10 years like they did 50 years ago.
Mm.
So you need to get out of the nest. You must carve your teeth outside, and the world outside of drama school is completely different. um, every director is different, every production is different, everybody has a different angle. You must serve a piece that you're working on. You must serve the director, the producer, and the production itself, and the character you're playing. And
Mm.
sometimes you have a lot of creative input in that, and sometimes you have absolutely none. And sometimes you get bossed around, and sometimes people are like, hey man, what do you want to do? Sometimes it can be really groovy, loosey goosey, kind of like, wow, let's all get together and put our ideas together in a pot. And sometimes it's like, chop, chop, we have no time. Let's get on with it. We got to shoot this. Let's go. Make a fast decision and go. Um, I always tell my students, don't forget what it was that got you in this school in the first place. I hope you haven't left that at the door, because although I think drama schools are very well meaning, I think sometimes what can be done is you come in with a talent, because obviously they saw some talent in you to bring you in. And then they go, okay, well, this is your talent. You've got that. I want to challenge you and make you more like this, and try to get you to do more of your comedy side, or more of your drama side, or more your classical training, and try to make you a more octopus kind of actor. You can do anything. But some actors are just not that. Some actors will never be that. Some actors are really good at being on Coronation Street, and there
Mhm.
is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some actors are brilliant at horror movies, some actors are fantastic at comedy, and some people are niche, and some people are very good at moving between all of those. um so sometimes by the end of a drama school, you can feel like, wow, I'm really not good at this, but that's not necessarily true, because what brought you in there in the first place is a drive and a desire for talent and a belief in yourself to have at least put yourself forward to train in this. And there's a lot that goes on that, and I really truly believe that, and I really say this from the bottom of my heart, you cannot dispel what is a good or a bad actor in this industry. You cannot decide that. Drama schools try to help. They go, oh, that's good acting, that's bad acting. Trust me, man. Like, some bad actors do really, really well in this industry for very good reasons.
Mhm.
And the one thing you have to really look at in yourself is, why are they doing so well? What is it that the audiences get from them? And not look down on them for that, neither the audience or them, but say, how do I fit into this industry, and where is my place in this? It's not my place to go that Pamela Anderson is like not a great actor, but Judi Dench is amazing. I mean, they're both really, really successful.
Mhm.
And that is that. Some audiences love Judi Dench and some audiences love Pamela Anderson. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a fair game.
Mhm.
And there's room in the industry for people who are extremely commercial actors, and there's room for classical actors as well. And I believe that a lot of classical actors would tell you the exact same thing,
Mhm.
you know. And a lot of people can hold their chops in between both, believe it or not. I think yeah, I think the last like 15, 20 years of the industry has really shown us a lot of who can really survive this,
Mhm.
especially with the advent of reality TV and such. A whole other branch of our careers opened up through social media, Instagram, putting ourselves forward on Twitter, on all of these things that are kind of important platforms as well. Um, these are all things that have to be considered when you go into this industry. And it's important to try and figure out, who am I in this? Who am I?
How would you suggest people do that? Is that gut, or is that seeing how people react to you in those different types of acting?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no other way than just getting in and doing it,
Mm.
like, first of all, I think, you know, I always say to actors, what do you want to do? Like, what do you like? What drove you in here?
Mm.
Be honest with yourself. It's okay if you say like, hey man, I'm here because I used to watch Happy Days on TV when I was a kid, and I was like, I just want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here because of Shakespeare or Chekhov. I'm here because, like, I thought Madonna was cool, and who's that girl?
Yeah.
And it's like, good. Then go back to that and figure, like, why is that good for me? Like, how would I do my own, or what's my thing?
Mm. Mm.
It's a question. It's a I believe it's a very kind of psychological question in a way that an actor needs to ask himself, especially when he's young and he's trying to make an identity for himself. I think young actors who really succeed are the ones who, I wouldn't say are naive, but are open to the possibility of doing anything really, and go,
Mm.
I'll give it a go. I'll give it a
Mm.
try. Um, we often say like, oh wow, ignorance is bliss. And look at that as a negative. But I was pretty ignorant when I came into this industry. I was a bit like, I'll do anything. Like, I was just like, I just want to be in it. I want to
Yeah.
be, I mean, mostly I wanted to be on TV, but that wasn't possible right away. So yeah, I'll do theater. Yeah, I just want to be in front of people. I want to act.
Mm.
People were like, I ended up doing mask theater for the first 4 years. And that brought me into being a very physical actor that I had no idea that I was. A very physical actor when I was younger. Um, I was good at sword fighting, even though I didn't really like it. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't realize I'm 6'4" and I'm really lean. I look really good when I'm sword fighting on stage. Somebody told me that. I'm like, great, good, I'll do that. So I did a lot of sword fighting my
That
first
must
few
be the
years.
hockey, surely. Is that the hockey training
I
coming
guess
in?
so, yeah. I had a finesse about me. I don't know. I was a yes person,
Mm,
and I'm definitely not saying get out there and do whatever anybody asks you to do. That could be obviously put you in a dangerous situation, but being a yes man is a good thing,
mm,
being a yes person, saying like, yeah, I'll do that. First port of call, like, do you want to stilt walk? Yeah, I'll give it a go. I'll
yeah,
try. Like I need to train. That's how I learned how to stilt walk. People
yeah.
go, do you know how to do stilts? And I go, no. They go, great. Do you want to try? I'm like, sure. Same with my horseback riding that I learned on Game of Thrones. I went to that audition and people were like, they were just like, can you ride a horse? And I was like, no, I cannot. And I'm 45 years old. So you might want to look for your horseback rider. And they were like, well, if we sent you out on lessons, would you want to learn? I'm like, sure. Yeah. Yes. I'm a yes person.
Yeah.
And they sent me out on horseback riding lessons. Uh, be willing to try new things. It was the same with puppeteering.
Mm,
Try it, see if you like it, see if that's your thing. And slowly but surely, your identity as a performer will come to the forefront. It'll
mm,
come up for you. You'll see where you belong. You see, I have a face that looks like the uncle in Aladdin. So I end up
mm.
playing Abanazar Jafar for 5 years, 6 years of panto life that I did
Yeah,
you know um maybe I wanted to play Widow Twanky, but I didn't.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
happy playing Jafar or Abanazar.
So,
Hey,
so then that brings me on to, so you seem like a nice guy, quite calm, casual, chatty, but then you end up playing all these not horrible, scary characters.
yeah.
Where's that come from, and why do you think that is? Why have you ended up in those?
um it's interesting that I'm writing about that at the moment.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. um well, there's a lot to be said about the the character that is the evil one
Mm,
in the piece, the antagonist in the piece. um it's a beautiful sacred space to be held. Actually, it's a great honor, because what you need to do, and two things you need to recognize is you have to have empathy for this character. You have to be able to see that. Growing up as a gay man from a very young age and knowing that, I really could identify with how I felt the world saw me, and thought that maybe there was something wrong or bad within me. So I think from that angle, I can empathize with the person and maybe why they are as angry or as monstrous as they have become. What has led them to that? But then also, you have to understand how you serve the piece too. That you have to understand that there's a protagonist in there, the person who does understand or needs to conquer that, or slay that dragon, or get rid of that, and that you're part of that piece as well. You're an element of that piece, because the piece is an overall metaphor for life, right? And you're only part of that metaphor, and so is the protagonist. So you're all part of that creation of that story. um it's a great honor to play them. I'm tall. I'm also bald. There's things that make it really easy for me to play the evil guy, and that's cool. And they're always a lot of fun to play. It's a great honor to play anything at all, to have any kind of casting chuck your way.
mm,
Understanding the reasoning behind it and understanding how you're going to do it is really important, for me.
mm, mm,
I think for any actor, I suppose. um the whys and hows of why I'm doing it or how I come around to be playing these, I don't know.
mm.
I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, I'm writing about it.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack there. And I guess, would you say that your agent and your headshots and your showreel have a part to play in you even getting through the door into the audition of those particular parts?
Yes. Yeah, I would say so.
Mm,
You know, I try to put forward as much stuff I can on my show reels. I haven't updated mine for ages.
mm,
Uh, update your show reels. Uh, yeah, I haven't updated mine for ages because I have a lot of stuff I'd love to put on there that's comedy. Because
mm.
I've worked in comedy for years. And I've done some really good little bits and bobs comedy wise in film and like short films and stuff recently. And you always want to show different angles and stuff. I just got cast recently playing a father, uh, and it's a comedy. His daughter's been kidnapped on her honeymoon, but it is a comedy.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity, someone to see me like that again.
Yeah.
Like it's a great opportunity. So yeah, keeping. I think yeah, my agent sort of tries her best to get me a job, really,
Mm.
and that's great. And I'm game for any kind of job, really.
So then with the parts, so the Doctor Who stuff and Game of Thrones,
Mhm.
just from a logistical side, how are they described to you when you go in for an audition? Is there a particular, because I heard the term skin performer before. Does
Mhm.
that apply, or is it like, because I'm assuming the Doctor Who thing, you're kind of fully in there, aren't you, in the character? So
Yeah,
how are they pitched to you when you're going for an audition?
they're more animatronic heads, like
Mm.
they're kind of big blobby things that are chucked onto you. Both of them have their extremely challenging. They're both of them are extremely challenging. One of them is like you sit in a chair for 6 hours and have makeup done, and then you've got to film for 12 hours after a 6 hour chair. And then you've got an hour and a half out of the chair, getting all the makeup off, 4 hours sleeping, and then you're back in the chair again. And then, it goes like that. So you have to be able to work like that for like at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, who knows, and not have a massive meltdown emotionally, which is tricky.
Yeah.
It is really definitely tricky.
Mm.
Not everybody can do that because some people don't operate on well under very little sleep. Some people don't operate well doing night shoots,
Mm.
even when they're not in prosthetic. So prosthetic work is challenging.
Mm.
Then there's the motion capture stuff, or the motion capture is challenging in its own right, just simply because you're covered in balls and you're not on set really. You're in a studio and it's all imagination, and I find it exhausting.
Mm.
Um, I find it repetitive. I find it really draining because there's no set, there's no costume, there's no props. It's like,
Oh.
it's like being back in drama school.
Mm.
And then there's the animatronic head world of Doctor Who and that kind of thing that I've experienced. There's very difficult to breathe inside of them. They're very confining. They're, very claustrophobic. If you're claustrophobic at all, you've got to be able to go to your sweet space in your head. So you know, there's a couple of places you got to be able to go to in your brain to be able to do all of this stuff. And you also have to, really want to do it. That is
Mm.
basically it. Like I really wanted to be in a movie. So put me in a witch's costume in Clash of the Titans. It takes forever and I can't breathe in it and I'm dying of overheating. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I'm going to be in a Warner Brothers movie. That's what I want to do,
Yeah.
I don't want to work in an office in Canary Wharf. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that. I want to do this, and so it comes with its own challenges.
And so think of an actor who's for doing prosthetic stuff for the first time.
Mm.
What are your tips for dealing with long makeup hours and long like you said, long makeup hours, performance, long D-rig, little sleep? What are your tips for sort of handling that?
So really reserve your energy. Do not. Do not think you've got to do anything until the cameras are up, ready, and they call action. Because everything that you do in a prosthetics or an animatronic head or whatever, you're burning your energy out, and there's no point in doing any of that until the cameras are rolling. So, and it's difficult because as an actor, you know, you want to keep your energy ready and ready and ready, but really you need to pace yourself. That's one thing. Know your diet with your stomach, your toileting. Really understand your diet and your body. Don't overeat or eat things that make you feel funny or weird. Eat for you what makes you feel healthy and good. What might be good for me might not be good for you. So stay hydrated. Listen to your team. Listen to the makeup artists. The makeup artists are your team. Of course, the director, of course, the producer are extremely important in this, but they will work alongside your makeup team. Your makeup team are your entourage on this. They are your part of your creation. So do not work against them in any way, shape, or form. Listen to them and trust them, because if you can't see or breathe properly, they are there to help you. They are there to help you breathe, help you see. They will be your eyes. They will be your ears if you cannot hear. They will communicate for you to the director and the producer if you cannot do that. They are there. You must trust them, especially if you feel like, oh, I'm panicking right now. You must tell them, like, I'm feeling panicky right now, or gosh, I feel a bit funny, or I'm feeling a little weird and dizzy right now. Share that with them. They're equipped to understand that and deal with it. They're not working at odds with you, and they don't want to be mean or cruel to you. They're there to support you. And when you work alongside them, they're a gift. Then you gossip with them and have fun with them, and the day goes by like that.
Yeah.
You're having cups of tea and you're giggling and you're talking about the Real Housewives, and it's all okay. You know, it's not going to be the big, dark, horrible experience that it can be, because it can be very isolating and lonely and strange feeling on set. So reach out and say, I don't feel well, I need to sit down now, is extremely important to say to the director or the first AD or your, because the last thing people want is for you to be taken off by the medic.
Yeah.
That's it. Then it's like game over. We got to really figure out what we're doing for the rest of the day, because we want you well enough. So if it means you're running out of water, and you will be, because more so than somebody else on set, you're not superhuman. You need to be, even when you're working like this all day, you'd be surprised how much more water you need than you normally do, because your body's in panic mode. You've never been like this all day in your life, covered your ears. So your body's working like this. You're sweating more. You're scared. Your body will work on an fear. Even when you calm yourself down and go, this is okay, your body still has an inner fear that needs to be calmed. So you can say, it's okay, Ross, it's okay. So you try to put it into perspective,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side of that, say you might be a student doing your graduation film, or you might be making your first feature film, and you've got an actor in who's got prosthetics on them. What would be your tips for the director, producer on dealing with that person? What can they do to help to get the most out of that actor?
Oh, good question, because I'm about to meet a director next week, because I'm working on a short film. It's his end of year project, actually. And
there we go.
And there we go. What is my suggestion? My suggestion is to try and get on board a very, very good experienced prosthetics person, at least. If you don't know what you're doing, at least get somebody, a makeup artist who knows what they're doing, so they can advise and help you. So I think directors and producers alike, and I think a good producer and a good director will do this, listen to the people who have experience prior to you and go, listen, I defer to you. But also be able to put forward what it is you need or you want from your project, right? So I need you to play an ant that is, I don't want to see your eyes. I don't want to see your mouth. I don't even want to see your nose. And then I can say to you, well, I need to be able to breathe. So something has to be done within this suit. And, you know, what you need to do is just be open to conversation and cooperation. And I think what young film directors struggle with, and I work with them a lot at Met Film, I do some classes there, you know, or step in as an actor there. I think what a lot of directors experience, even when they become very professional and very good directors, is communication can be tricky, which is understandable because the director sees things through the lens of the camera. So they're looking at the lens of the camera and they're not paying attention to you over there. But, you know, if you're young and you're coming into this industry, it'll benefit you a little bit, especially if you're working with prosthetics actors, to really know what your parameters are of what you can get out of them and what you can't. And so it's very important. You know, I learned this only by doing. You know, I had to be able to say to the first AD and the director, I can only do 2 more takes, and then I've got to break. I need to break. So it can't be dictated or called all the time by the director and the first AD. Of course, we understand we need to get through the shoot, but sometimes my body is just like, okay, now I know I can't do much more than this. So just understand that you're not working with a regular actor. You're working with somebody who's physically limited at the moment, you know, being debilitated by their whole body being smothered by a substance of some sort. So listening, cooperating, trying to figure out what the piece really needs and serve that. And, you know, like I asked the director that I'm working with on this piece that we're shooting next month, you know, I said, I'd love to meet up with you and have a coffee just to talk through all of what we're going to be doing. And I want to hear what your vision is, what you would like from me. How do you see this? You know, I've read the piece. How do you see it coming to life before us physically on set? You know, how is that going to be realistic? What's going to be expected of me? And then I can tell you how I best work. You know, I work really well. I mean, like a lot of people do, the first half of the day, 7 o'clock till 12, 1 o'clock is my sweet spot. After 1 o'clock, my body gets tired. You know, I'm also older, 56 now. I kind of need a nap, you know, around 2 o'clock. If you really want the best of my ability at 3 or 4 o'clock, I need a good 20, 25-minute nap. Then I'm great. You know, expressing that sort of thing, hearing that sort of thing, and working with that sort of thing can really help you, really benefit a project.
Yeah. And I think from the other side of the camera, I've probably been guilty of this in very early productions, is you don't see the person, you see the character, the prosthetic, and you don't appreciate their discomfort. So you sort of treat them a little bit like, in some instances, like we had on one of the first films, we had a guy in a killer clown outfit with all prosthetics and stuff. And almost because they're not coming up to you and speaking to you and saying, actually, I'm really uncomfortable, I really need a break. You just, oh, they're okay. And you just carry on. And you know what filming's like. It's long days. Things take ages to set up. So the real key is preparation and scheduling to make sure when they come out of that makeup, you use them. They're not sat over there in discomfort for an hour before they even get in front of the camera.
Well, that's what I was saying about, you know, burning yourself out. You know, it's the same with the director. You know, don't burn out your actor if he's ready to go and he's in his prosthetics, you know, and they're, you know, time is ticking. I think, you know, what happened on Clash of the Titans was, and we had to resolve this after day one, was they were, you know, we were shooting in a shale pit. We were playing 3 blind witches in that. And in that shale pit, there was fire pits that would blow.
Right.
And there was actual fire. It wasn't CGI. It was actual fire and actual steam. Well, you know, they would have that fire and steam going and going and going before we even rolled the camera. So you can imagine how hot that studio was. It was, you could cook a roast in there. And then we're sat there and I'm 40, 50 pounds of prosthetics, only able to breathe through my mouth. Within an hour, my heart is racing. I can't see anything because I've got so much, like, I mean, already I could barely see anything. I've got so much sweat. I'm drowning. and I'm scared, basically. I'm like basically afraid.
Yeah.
And you can't see me. You can't see me. And it was really my makeup artist who said, "Are you okay? Because it's really hot in here." And I was like, "I don't know." And she just said to me, "It's your call, but listen, you know, don't don't get sick, because that's the worst." Like that you get ill. And I was like, she's like, "Do you need to get off set?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she just, little girl that she was at the time, she's a big makeup artist now, stood up and she just went, "Stop, stop everything, stop. I have to get him off set. He's overheating. It's like, get him off, get him out, get him out." And I just never wanted that to occur again. I didn't want that to occur then. And nobody wants that to occur. But if you can't see the person or think about the person or know what's going on in there, after that, I can tell you everything changed. The executive producer stepped in, Richard
Yeah.
Zanuck, and changed everything. He was like, "This is not going to happen again." He said, "You're going to be fine." Because he said to me, "When you speak, that's me speaking. Whatever you need, you tell them." And I've told them that when you speak, that's me speaking, and I'm the executive producer here. So, thankfully for him, I went back on that set and I could voice myself, but people were immediately like, "Are you okay? Do you need some water? Do you need some ice? Are you cool enough? Then I could work.
Yeah.
And the end result is, Clash of the Titans, the remake, is not a classic, but I take great pride in our scene. I think we did an amazing job, The Witches. I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie. I really do. And I look at that today. I watched it on the plane going over to Omaha a few months ago, and I thought, wow, like, I can't believe I actually did that. Because I nearly died on that. I literally nearly died on that set.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the executive producer thought so too, because at the premiere, I said to him, "Hey, Mr. Zanuck, I'm Ross Mullan." He said, "Hey, you played the witch in my movie. I nearly killed you, but I didn't kill you." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And he was like, "Forget about it." Without him, I don't know if I'd be here, really.
Yeah. And again, you've highlighted some great advice for people training in prosthetics, is having the confidence to speak up on behalf of your performer.
Yeah.
Because again, it can be a bit intimidating if you're on a set and you're starting out and you're in the prosthetics department, but you're really responsible for that person, for looking after them. So you need to speak up if they need your help. So I've got to talk about your Game of Thrones character. Did you know, because that's such a big scene, such an epic moment, did you know that was going to be that big and epic when you did it? Or, what was your kind of going into it? Did you know it was going to be, because it's one of it's like some of your other ones, it's become like a real iconic image. Were you aware of that when you were about to do it?
No, not at all. God, not in the least.
Yeah.
Because I just come back off of Clash of the Titans, and as you understand, that was my first prosthetics job, and I hated it. So I never wanted to do another one again.
Yeah.
And the makeup artist from that became the makeup artist on Game of Thrones. Connor O'Sullivan was the original makeup artist for the White Walker that I did in season 2. Got in touch with my agent and said, "We'd like to have Ross in for this." And my agent said, "Hey, like, they want to have you back doing your mom." And I was like, "I don't want to do it." Like, I was like, "I really, really, I don't want to do that." She was like, "Well, it's like, it's Game of Thrones." And I was like, "I don't even know what that is." I was like, not even watching it, or it's not wasn't on my radar. She was like, "Yeah, you need to ride a horse." And I was like, "I don't ride a horse." So there we go. It's like not going to happen. She said, "Well, listen, I've talked to them, because we were going back and forth." And she said, "Connor would really like you to just go down and chat with them and hear them out." So I was like, "Well, okay." So I went down to the audition literally, and I said, "I'm here for King of Thrones." And they were like, "It's Game of Thrones." Nina Gold was like, "It's Game of Thrones." And I was like, "Oh, it's a game. I thought it was a TV show." And she went, "No, it's a TV show. It's called Game of Thrones. based on a series of books. And I went, oh, there's books. I was like, literally, I have no idea. It was so not on my radar at all. And in the audition process, was, of course, I'm a creative, and I I'm fascinated still. I went in there, they showed me a beautiful storyboard of gorgeous images that were both drawn and photographs of indigenous tribal people from all over the world, New Zealand, South America, North America, all these wild ideas of this tribal warrior. They describe this character that steals babies from the snow, and like they don't know what they do with them. And it was very similar to my audition for Clash of the Titans. They had like all descriptions and cool things but they didn't have a script because the character didn't speak, and they had like they had a big inner tube of a wrapping paper, those cardboard inner tubes.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's your sword. So like, take that sword, and, we're going to just turn the camera on and maybe you can improvise. And I think Connor knew that I would do this, like, because that's what I did for my Clash of the Titans audition. I just told them to turn on the camera and I'd improvise. And so I improvised this little thing where, like, I was just like warrior walking through the snow barefoot and, pointing. Then I see a baby in the snow and I point this cardboard inner tube at it like it's a knife, and I'm gonna like kill it. And then I pick it up and I was about to stab it, and then I kissed it, and everybody laughed, and they were like, oh, okay, that's funny, but don't do that when we do it the second time. And then we had this discussion about horses. Could I ride? Was I afraid? Was I not? Would I be willing to? My father's from Northern Ireland, so having an Irish passport as well helped me because they were filming up in Ireland. I've been on a farm a lot, so they were like, I'm not afraid of horses in any way, but I just didn't know how to ride. So I was like, game for riding, game for doing it. And, they're convincing me. And Connor kept saying to me, it's not going to be Clash of the Titans. You're going to be able to see, you're going to be able to breathe through your nose, you'll be able to breathe through your mouth. And because you're riding a horse, the prosthetics going to be a lot easier on you. I got it. Then I started watching Game of Thrones. I knew that I was going to be the season finale of season 2. Like that was going to be, you are the season finale of season 2, your reveal. I didn't realize how cool that was a spot until I watched the end of Game of Thrones. And I was like, oh, wow, these guys created a really cool, they kill off their main character in the end of season 1. I was like, whoa, what? This is crazy. This cannot be. So I thought, oh, cool. Well, they're going to have. And also I realized there's nothing like my character on this show. Right. So then I started talking to other people, it was a bit hush hush, but I started to tell personal friends like, oh, I'm in this show, Game of Thrones, based on books. They were like, oh my God, you're going to be like one of the others, which is the White Walker. You're like, wow, that's mega big. It's going to be huge. So I had an inkling that it was going to be big. What did I wasn't really 100% sure of anything until it's out there, I guess, the penny really dropped when the first day of shooting, Dave and Dan, the producers, came to my trailer and said, nobody knows what you look like except for us and the makeup team. We're going to bring your horse over to the makeup trailer, and then you can climb up on the horse, and then we're going to ride you ride over to the studio, because it was all shot. The very first season was shot on a green screen at Shepperton. And I rode my horse over to the studio, and then they kicked the barn doors open, and I just rode in on my horse, and people were like, grabbing their phones. And then they were like, no, you can't take a photograph. People were like, oh my God, this is like mind blowing. It was like, so then I was like, oh, this is going to be, this is a big deal. So yeah, I mean, I kind of had an inkling, and then, then it happens, and then your Twitter feed blows up a bit.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And what I've taken away from that is when my son grabs those wrapping paper tubes and starts
Yeah.
playing with them, I should let him play with them, because
Oh
clearly
yeah.
that's that turns into something when you're a pro. Um, so the Doctor Who stuff. Because you did three roles on Doctor Who, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it a case of you did one and they invited you back, or were they three separate jobs?
Well, weirdly, I've done four,
Oh,
but one of
four.
them
Okay.
is not actually on Doctor Who. It was in Doctor Who Proms.
Right.
My first job was the Doctor Who Proms, replacing Spencer Wilding, playing the Ice Warrior in the Proms.
Mm-hmm.
But that was still working with the Doctor Who team. And after that, they invited me to replace one of the guys who was playing the Silence, because there's four people playing the Silence. He dropped out, and I could fit the bill because I'm the same height.
Mm-hmm.
So I was filling in again. And then my third job was, we'd like to offer you your own character, your own creature, which was the Teller. And then my fourth one was coming back and, filling in a gap, playing a Wraith in Jenna Coleman's last episode, Hellbound. So yeah, it was, and I think really largely by then I was getting a name for myself for playing creatures. I'd played a few, not just the White Walker and the one in Clash of the Titans, but I had done a couple of commercials and stuff as well, playing space aliens or monsters. So Doctor Who was, I was on their radar, and yeah, they were, wanting me to come in and do a few monsters for them.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
pretty cool.
you just become typecasted.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what you want in this industry, is some sort of typecast so that you can be cast
Yes.
as
You can
some
get
sort of
those
type.
jobs. Yes.
They don't know how to cast you, you won't get cast.
Yes, very true. For more advice, tips, tricks, hints, all sorts from people who are in the business and who are working right now, please do subscribe to the Honest Filmmaker podcast.